About 4 or 5 days ago, a Milwaukee officer was killed in a foot pursuit chasing a robbery suspect. So I'm going to talk to you about some tactics regarding foot pursuits. I already made a video, which I'll link to this video, explaining how you should run with your firearm if you choose to do so. But generally speaking, if we are running after somebody that we know is armed, is reported to be armed, or maybe they're making movements towards their waistband, or maybe the offense, they're a wanted fugitive and it's a felony, whatever the case may be, whatever the facts and circumstances that may exist for you at the time, it may make sense for you to run with your firearm out. And in that video, I describe, exactly how to go about doing that. When I hear the reports that the officers were chasing a robbery suspect on foot and a physical altercation occurred and the suspect fired his weapon, striking the officer, I'm immediately starting to ask myself, why were we even putting our hands on this person at that specific time? Now, there is a time and a place and when the time is right to do that, but when we're running after that person and we do not have compliance, in those circumstances where you know that they're probably armed, that doesn't seem like the right time to be doing that. And there's many cases where this exact thing happens, where officers are chasing after a suspect they know is armed, they go to grab onto him, this person pulls a weapon and shoots the officer. In this case in particular, the way it was explained is that 2 officers were running after the suspect. 1 officer got into a physical confrontation. The suspect discharged his firearm, striking the officer who was trailing behind. And what was reported is that the officer that was trailing behind, and I assume mortally wounded, returned fire, striking the suspect, which also kind of seems a little bit odd. If you have one officer struggling with that suspect and then he shoots and kills the trailing officer, how is that trailing officer able to return fire, striking the suspect? That is unclear to me, because I would assume that the officer and the other suspect would be in such close proximity to one another. But it was also stated that the suspect may have died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Check for a suspect wanted in a connection to a robbery. Upon arrival, officers located a suspect who ignored their commands and fled on foot. One of the officers was able to catch up to the suspect and a struggle ensued. During the struggle, the suspect used a handgun and fired shots, striking the other officer. That officer discharged his firearm. During the exchange, the suspect was struck by gunfire. It is unknown if the suspect's fatal injury was self-inflicted or from the officer's gunfire.
Generally speaking, when the facts and circumstances exist, it's a felony offense, you know he's armed, he's reported to be armed, he's making affirmative movements. That is not the time where we are going to want to be running after this person for the purposes of grabbing a hold of them, right? So what we should be doing as we're running, probably should have our firearm out, and we should be continuously preparing ourselves for a gunfight, right? So whatever that is, creating distance if he stops, moving to cover if you can. But what we want to do, the goal is to put that person in a compromising position, and then when it's safe to do so, then we move up to them and we go contact cover, where somebody's covering down on the suspect and another officer is coming up to put their hands on them, right? But we don't want to be doing that until we feel comfortable that that person is in a compromising position and he is not going to hurt us. In those situations, we need to prepare ourselves for what is the most important thing in that moment, and the most important thing in that moment is making sure we have lethal coverage and that this person isn't going to hurt us.